Good afternoon. I'm Jay Crutchfield from successnc.org and the Community College Systems Learning Solutions team. Welcome to today's webinar entitled Developmental Reading in English, Implementation and Teaching Strategies, Case Study 1 of 3. This webinar is brought to you by North Carolina Community Colleges and successnc.org. Throughout the presentation, we want to hear from you. Please type your questions and comments in the chat box located at the right side of the screen. We've scheduled some time today at the end of the presentation to address all of your questions. Once again, thank you for being here, and now I'll turn the program over to Cynthia Liston.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are very excited to be able to have this opportunity, and we appreciate the folks at Gaston College who are hosting this webinar for us, where we have 3 colleges who will be sharing the implementation and teaching strategies that they have developed for the new DRE curriculum. And I'm just going to spend a very short amount of time talking a little bit about the timeline. For those who may be newer to this process, I'm hopeful that most folks are familiar with kind of what has been happening in terms of the redesign of our developmental curriculum in the state, but I do want to share just a few key pieces of information about the redesign and the timeline. Before I do that, I also want to mention that this is the first of 3 DRE webinars, and they will each be different. The approach that we are taking with these is to profile different colleges who have either already piloted the DRE courses or are planning for implementation this fall. So we have 3 colleges that you'll hear from today, and then a week from today there'll be 3 additional colleges, and then 3 the week after that. So those other dates are May 3rd and May 10th. So I do encourage you to participate in as many of the webinars as your schedule will allow. In addition, I also want you to be aware that these webinars will be archived on the SuccessNC website, which is where you went to register for this webinar. So if you are not able to attend in person, please do check back and spend a lunch hour or so catching the other presentations as well. So with that, I will go ahead and just give a very short summary of sort of how we got to where we are right now with the DRE implementation. As many of you know, North Carolina's community college system has been one of 6 states taking part in a national effort called the Developmental Education Initiative. That work started in 2009 and has been steered by a DEI state policy team of more than 30 folks from our colleges, from our state board, from DPI, everyone from presidents and board members to faculty and dean and student development officers, and a whole wide array of folks who've been steering this work at the state level. In terms of the redesign of developmental English and reading, that state policy team adopted a set of redesign principles in 2010, and in 2011, a committee or task force of 18 faculty members from developmental and curriculum English and reading was put together in late 2011. That was done through a nomination process with external reviewers and a number of different stakeholders who helped create and choose the members of that task force. That group started meeting in January of 2012, or actually I think there was one meeting in late 2011, and basically spent more than 6 months meeting almost bi-weekly to carry out the curricular redesign that has become the new DRE curriculum. Also in 2012, in the fall, we had 5 colleges that did beta tests of the new curriculum, which means that they tested it sort of under the structure of other developmental English and reading courses, but really kind of tested out the new curriculum. The task force also convened regional meetings and did a number of NCAID presentations to share the new curriculum, and also presented at the system conference in October of 2012. And this spring, there have been pilots, so the DRE curriculum was approved by our Curriculum Review Committee, and 7 colleges are piloting this semester. And the full implementation year begins fall of 2013. Colleges have 1 year to implement the new courses, with all colleges adopting the new courses by fall of 2014. In addition to the webinars that we're doing this spring, we plan to organize some face-to-face professional development this fall. And we are also working with our student services on a summer event that will focus on DevEd redesign for some of our student services folks at our colleges. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that we have had our initial meetings with the College Board regarding the creation of the English and reading portion of the North Carolina Diagnostic Assessment and Placement Test. And that test will be available in spring 2014. We're working closely with them on the design of that test, and that process is underway as well. So that's a very large, very quick overview of the English and Reading Redesign timeline, and I will sort of turn it over now to the faculty who are members of the task force, who are going to share their models for DRE at their own institutions. We're asking each of the colleges to share for about 20 minutes, and then we will have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So with that, I will turn it to our first presenter, which is Hilda.
So what I'm planning to do this afternoon is talk to you a little bit about the background of our project and how we went about planning for the pilot semester, our process. And then I'm going to go to the more detail about our DRE 097 and 098. Kathryn Temple, who's following me, is going to talk about 096. But I will be happy to send you all any of our information on 096 that you would like. I just didn't want to make my part too long and didn't want to clutter up the presentation with too much. Also, I may have to leave about 3 o'clock for an emergency kind of thing that's come up, but one of my colleagues is going to step in, and he has taught both of those the classes, so he can answer the questions as well as I can. So as we decided as we got involved with the DRE project, we were a little bit ahead in terms of thinking about an integrated curriculum, because we had taught the integrated sequence of courses since 1996 when we had the re-engineering project. So we chose to go ahead and develop and pilot the full curriculum in spring 2013 because we knew that we had that concept under our belts and we understood it, our adjuncts understood it. So rather than running the old courses and the new courses, we just went full bore into the new ones. In the fall, early fall of 2012, our full-time faculty met and talked about what we needed to do. We went over the goals and objectives of the new curriculum, the student learning outcomes, and had a pretty good idea of where we needed to go with the courses. We divided into teams of 3 people. Luckily, we had 9 folks, and each of those 3 took a different course to develop the syllabi, the assignments, the rubrics, reading materials, text, that kind of thing. Then we came back together with the full-time faculty to review all that and get feedback, make changes. In some cases, there were some overlaps, and we had to move things around a bit. But we finally came up with our plans for the 3 courses. So that took us about the first 8 weeks of fall semester of 2012. After we felt that we had the courses in pretty good shape, then we held a series of 3 workshops for our adjuncts. So we invited them to come for an afternoon Actually, the first time I think we met 2 afternoons because we wanted to introduce the whole curriculum first, and then we went in detail through each of the courses and had them practice, and again got some really good feedback from them, so we even tweaked things a bit after that based on some of their suggestions. We also wanted them to know what they might be in for, and thought in all fairness we needed to let them know what was coming and what to expect. Also in the fall of 2012, we held some advising workshops to prepare faculty advisors for the changes that were coming. This part of it was not quite as difficult for us because we had piloted the DMA curriculum in the spring of 2012. So our folks were already used to the new idea, to the abbreviated time period, and to what they might need to look for. So getting ready for DRE wasn't quite as much of an adjustment because we had laid the groundwork already. We had consulted with our program heads to explain the new courses, to establish what their prereqs might be, and to make sure that they understood the courses and what kinds of things, because we wanted especially to make sure that they understood that these new courses were not an exact equivalent, one equivalent with the old 3 levels of English that we had had, and that what they could expect from their students. We established a crosswalk. We developed our own internal crosswalk first, and then modified that a bit when the state crosswalk came out, the one that's in our final DRE document. And as we did with DMA, we certainly spent a good bit of time working with the registrar's office and other services on campus, because we all had to be in this together. I'm not sure how far you all have gotten with either DMA or DRE, but this step is absolutely crucial, because you really have to establish that team of people who understand what's going on, and because it takes all these folks working together to make this successful. Our courses, well, let me back up a second. The scheduling was very flexible for these courses. As you know, they are 56 hours during the 8 weeks, which is 5 hours of class time and 2 hours lab. Because we decided that we did not have a software component or lab component that we just felt comfortable with yet, that we wanted to have all of our class hours in a traditional classroom. So we set up our classes to meet an hour and a half on Monday through Thursday, and then 1 hour on Fridays. So we're still looking for that software component so that we can maybe make that lab time more flexible. We have this scheduling of the 1.5 hours, in all honesty, has been a bit problematic for some of the advising in other courses, because it's hard for students to find, with the 1.5 hours, to find other courses that they need that all fit together, and some of them in the technology courses that have long lab times have had a bit of a problem with this. So that's on our list of things to work on for next year. Okay, we tried to stick, as we were working on our courses, to the design principles that were set out at the very beginning for the new curriculum. Integration, of course, was overall. We kind of understood that. We wanted to, we're going with the concept of acceleration only in terms of trying to cut down on the amount of time that students might have to spend in a developmental course. We wanted to make sure that the content was rigorous. As you have seen, I'm sure, from the document, the Lexile levels were established because we want the reading material to be appropriate and rigorous enough so that students can handle the requirements of college level reading. We also wanted the writing assignments to be substantive, not, as we had in the past, have so many journal type assignments that maybe didn't get them down to working really as hard as they needed to and thinking as much as they needed to. We also, of course, want to incorporate technology. Even though we don't have the lab component, we do have a Moodle component for all of our courses, and so that we can post assignments and we can post some of the materials that students need to print out for their classes. We, of course, have the 80% mastery requirement, and that has been a bit of a bear, trying to figure out exactly what is mastery and which assignments need to be mastered. I'll talk to you a little bit about how we learned some lessons during session 1 in just a few minutes. And then we wanted to make sure that our final assessments were worthy of the course and worthy of the work that the students had done, so that they would be a good reflection that the students had mastered the outcomes of that course. Using the goals that were set in the original document as we planned the curriculums, we, of course, were looking at using, emphasizing the processes, having students demonstrate the use of reading and writing processes and how they complement each other. Using critical thinking strategies in both reading and writing, and showing students how important it is to be able to get at those kinds of things in a reading and then to make their writing substantive enough that folks could have there's some meat to it, that it's not so superficial. And then having students recognize and compose well-developed, coherent, and unified texts. So the idea all the way through is to just keep that back and forth between reading and writing, so that one is just almost a mirror image of the other. All right, I'm going to run through a little bit about the text, the course outline, and our mastery assignments for DRE 097 and 098. The books that we chose because these were books that we had already been using in fall of 2012. And you know how we want to accommodate bookstores and to stay friendly with everybody. So we, rather than change something in midstream, these actually were 2 texts that we had used in English 095, but we decided that we could use those in 097. This is just a small little reader of essays, very, very good little essays that were appropriate and worked okay for us. This is a custom text that we had designed several years ago, a combination of readings from the Pearson database, and then also our handouts and some homemade resources that we put together. Mostly, our materials were dealt mostly with writing. So again, because we had a contract for this book for 2012 and 13, we stuck with that one. And then in addition to that, we developed just a very small collection of readings from textbooks. I think there are maybe about 4 readings in the little book that, again, Pearson put together for us to give students that experience of textbook reading. So you can see that all of this is nonfiction, and that's the way we decided to go. And of course, using the Moodle component as one of our resources. Okay, I'm going to show you just briefly, and I did pare this down quite a bit because it would have been 2 or 3 pages long, and we don't need all that, but just to give you some idea of the sequence of assignments in DRE 097 for Session 2. The theme that we chose for this one is Culture and Diversity, Shaping Interactions and Experiences. So we began with a reading, practicing annotation, and reviewing some of the reading skills that students may have had in 096 already, or if they tested into 097, we assume that they know some of these things, but we do want to review them. And if you'll notice, if you have the DRE document, you'll notice as we go through the courses and the student learning outcomes for each course, there's some of the outcomes that are introduced at one level but then are reinforced throughout the rest of the sequence. So we don't ever want to think that anything is just a one-shot deal. We keep reinforcing and reviewing these skills as we move on through the curriculum. So students begin with journal writing. This first one is either a descriptive or narrative journal. One of the guidelines in our plan also too is to minimize the number of personal narrative type writings. So in each of these courses we have only one of those because we want to emphasize the expository and third-person text. Another journal, more readings in the book, cause and effect, and then comparison contrast. In week 5, they begin working on the textbook chapter, and then in week 6, begin writing the 5-paragraph essay. So we spend the last couple of weeks working through that essay with drafts, conferences, revisions, and then the final draft is due on May 3rd, which is our last day before the exam period starts. This is our mastery statement for 097. Students have to, through all these, the prior assignments, or the assignments prior to the final essay, there's a total of 100 points, and they have to have an 80% of that 100 points in order to move forward and to actually do the final essay. We always tell students at that point that they may not have the score and that they probably are not going to pass the course at that point. But we encourage them to stay in and to practice on the essay with the understanding that they're going to have to repeat, but at least they'll get some practice and maybe have a sense of what's coming. And I'm sure you can imagine how many of them actually really do that, but we do try to encourage them to. That's part of the mastery concept that we're all having to get used to, and I'm not sure we have a perfect handle on it yet, but we keep working. All right, in DRE 098, we are also using that same custom text because of the resource material in there, the writing material, the MLA guidelines, and that kind of thing. And this time we are using the there's also a textbook chapter in this book that we're using this session. And then we're using the book Picking Cotton, which is an account of a young man who was wrongly accused of rape and the woman who accused him. So those two are the co-authors. So we're kind of looking at things dealing with the justice system, people being wrongly accused. The students have really gotten into looking at the Innocence Project. We also use the movie Conviction, which is another story of a man who was wrongly accused of a crime. So that's been a really good experience. This is the cover of the book. So again, in DRE 098, we began with assessment and review of reading strategies. We assigned an article for the students to annotate, to practice annotation, assigning the first part of the book. We talked about the difference between annotating a chapter in a book and annotating a textbook, because they're a little bit different. This is more reaction type annotations maybe than just a regular textbook would be. We had students develop what we call a topics chart, which is just a sheet of paper with columns that has different topics that come up through the course of the book, because we want them to start preparing from the very beginning for their documented essay, which is the final assignment. We began the next, this is still the same week, with the personal narrative. Then in week 3, we get into the movie. We have another journal, which is a dialectical journal in response to the movie, similar to, it's basically a reader response journal, but in this case, the movie. Then moving on to part 2, in week 4, we start talking about the documented essay. And you'll notice that we're having reading quizzes all the way through here. That was one thing we did not do session 1. We tried to assess reading through some more informal ways, and we felt that we needed to do something a little more structured. So we had a series of 3 quizzes on the book. We also, in 098, have them write a summary, and that came from the textbook chapter, or part of that textbook chapter. We talked about annotating a textbook, finish the novel. I mean, not the novel, I'm sorry, finish the book. It's hard to not say novel anymore, but so then at the end of week 6, we started in earnest getting down to the documented essay. They had already identified topics so that we could begin working on thesis and outline, doing conferences, and then next week we'll again be doing conferences, revisions, peer review, that kind of thing. And then the final paper is due on May 3rd. Okay, this is our mastery for 098. A little bit different from 097. We're going to make this more consistent next time. But again, the same concept that students have to have an 80% mastery of all of these assignments prior to the documented essay before they can move forward to actually writing that documented essay. And again, we give them the option of withdrawing from the course at that point and getting an R, or continuing and getting practice on the documented essay. So what have we learned? From session 1 to session 2, we learned that DRE 096 did not have enough material or assignments. DRE 098, in session 1, we had too much, so we cut back a bit on that. DRE 097 was pretty much just right. We had, we're trying to customize our grading scale so that it looks more the same from one course to another, so that students they kind of understand if they're moving through all 3 what to expect. And we adjusted that mastery component so that students had more time to achieve mastery on some of the shorter assignments before they got to the final essay. And our plans as we go forward, one of the big things that we need to do is find that software product that's going to be the most effective for us and how to use it, because that is going to impact our scheduling, and that's something we've got to consider. For next fall, we're developing a custom text that will include all 3 levels. So it will have 4 parts. It'll have a common kind of resource section that will include some grammar review and MLA guidelines and some main idea practice, that kind of thing. But then it'll have a course specific section also with the specific reading materials and assignments that go with that course. Certainly looking on to find new materials and to just keep going until we get it right, or until we're satisfied that we're as good as we can be. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to KT.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Tipples from Tri-County Community College, Murphy, North Carolina. Actually, I'm not at work today. I'm actually sitting at home on this lovely day and meeting with you guys online, which is really cool. We're kind of much smaller than Pitt, Hilda's school there. We are, and if I can get my mouse to change the slide, you can see that we are on the western tip of North Carolina, and our service area includes really a remote rural area of Cherokee and Clay and Graham. Our average enrollment is about 1,400 there, and it could fluctuate. For example, fall can be a little bit larger and spring can be a little bit less. So we're kind of like Pitt's little sister in a sense, that we have went through the similar process of studying what we do and going forward with the DRE. When any change occurs, there's always a leap of faith, a leap of effort. And this integrated studies has become really important in the last few years. The idea of getting reading and writing and making stronger speakers and readers. Like Pitt, we had taken this initial leap several years ago. We went to the integrated courses of ENG 075, 085, and 095 in around 2003, because we found that our students being from a rural area, a lot of times when they came into developmental education, they needed both. They needed the reading and the writing. And once upon a time when the folks took the acupressure test, they would get out printouts for all the reading 070, 080, 090, the English 070, 080, 090, and the 075, 085, and 095. Well, it got to be really strange and confusing for the advisors and student services and our instructors, everybody that was involved at the time. So we went through our academic affairs committee and said, we can streamline this. We know that our folks are going to have stronger reading skills and writing skills. So we took that leap and integrated our courses. We taught these courses for a long time in the 16-week kind of format there, which of course would give time, equal time for the reading and writing, allowing students to grow into this process. So the integration part of the DREs wasn't such a surprise to us. That was one of our easier transitions. Because we had already put some systems in place, books and resources, and I have wonderful instructors who are very passionate about what they do and very passionate about teaching their students to improve themselves for college studies. It's all about progress, and we've always said that. So when we got involved with the DRE, we knew that we'd have to do some changes, but we knew that we had pretty much the integrated idea down. We had been doing that for a while. So, kind of like Pitt, we went through a preparation process. We had to talk with our folks in student services and, financial aid, the advising, the placement. We used the acupressure placement. And we basically had to study what we did for these things and, kind of look at it as an institutional perspective. What are we going to do with these folks? How are we going to have a path forward for them? And we knew that we wanted to get started with this as quickly as possible, just for the benefit of our students. Get that transition, get the foundation laid, and go forward. So about October 12, I believe the integrated or the DRE classes became live in the colleague, the data tell. And so we knew we didn't have a lot of time between that and January 7th, the first day of classes. But we wanted to make it happen. We were ready to take the leap. And like I said, I have people who are very talented. They got right in there and just studied the big document, the curriculum draft, and looked at what we were doing and comparing it to what should be done. Like Pitt, though, we kind of decided that maybe if we're going to take this leap, definitely to help our bookstore out, to use the existing materials that were already available for 075, 085, and 095. We did know that on 75 and 85 that we were probably going to have to do some tweaking a little bit just to get with a more of a contextual type nature, which the plan called for. But we felt pretty good about it. And like I said, we thought that we could take our materials and at least begin the process, because the DREs really are a work in progress. At the end of the day, 58 community colleges are going to have 58 ways that they must get to move forward. And of course, the three of us today will give you kind of our insight from us, but I encourage you to talk to other folks, talk to schools that are close to your size or bigger schools. Get as much information as you can, because the more information you have, the better decisions that you can make for your school and what is appropriate for your students. The other thing that we did at TCC, we were worried about that bottom floor, the floor between 075 and DRE 96. And kind of because of some situations that we had with the math and some folks with that on that bottom floor, we thought, well, you know, we're implementing this, but we want to hold on to 075 just in case we have those folks who are truly not quite there yet, that need a tweaking, and give them the opportunity to take that class and then hopefully move into the DRE sequence more comfortably. However, what we did with 075 was that we put it in the same format as the other classes, meaning it met 8 weeks rather than 16 weeks. So of course, you know, 8 weeks, that's, you know, marching double time, and for some students on the lower level, time is precious. They have to have time to grow and time to learn. But in an environment like that, it really, you have to get the students motivated, keep them motivated, especially if they are struggling readers and learners. They need a lot of self-confidence. They need to taste success. And we always have believed that to be an important part of anything we do. So, spring 2013, implementation at Tri-County. Our DRE arrived. And we put the little symbol here as a gift because, you know, anything that comes in a package is an exciting thing. So we're rolling this out for our students, a new way of looking at the refresher Englishes. We tend to use the word refresher rather than remedial. It's just a nicer way of putting it, although we all understand what that is. We want our students to know that the college is there to support them in their process, and we are providing this to them so that they can strengthen their academic abilities and go forward with their career plans and studies. So we'll move a little bit forward here. All right, so even though we're quite small and much smaller than Pitt and Coastal, who are presenting with us today, we do have a satellite campus, kind of the Graham County Center, if you will, and the Murphy campus. Murphy is real close to the Clay and Cherokee, where Graham County is, of course, Robbinsville, Graham County area. So you can see we're kind of covering a large territory with our particular programs. We decided to do all three of the DREs, 96, 97, and 98. We chose web-enhanced formats and hybrid formats pretty much because of the scheduling things. With a small school, we have limited space. Our students sometimes have real transportation issues just to get to campus, which also could mean that they have trouble with, you know, computer access and that type of stuff. Student course loads can be very deal-breaking if someone is working all day in a restaurant or something and having to come to an evening class. So we have to be real sensitive to our population, and the way, you know, we go about our scheduling is always a big consideration. We've always instructed with a philosophy: we want to meet our students where they are academically and help them grow into confident learners. And we do recognize if someone comes into that, well, English 075 or the DRE 96, they're just barely there with one toe over the line. We know that they've got a way to go to get up to be college and career ready. But because of our small size, our instructors can have really individual and personal experiences with our students. Sometimes we'll have small classes. They could be from 2 to 10. So there's a lot of individual instruction that can happen, and we can target people's skills and weaknesses very quickly. So we've always tried to move folks forward that can move forward, but we've always sensitive to those folks that are, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. And I'll switch this over. Okay, so I promised to talk to you a little bit about DRE 096. We did the 3 kind of like Pitt did, but we'll talk to you about this integrating reading and writing number 1. That's me at the top, Kathryn Temple, KT, Kathy Chambers, and Lisa Keener. We were the ones that pretty much were dealing with the DREs this term. Lisa Keener will carry on the DREs in the summer at our satellite campus there. So we offered these the first 8 weeks, which we call Fast Track 1, and the second 8 weeks, which is Fast Track 2. The existing materials that we had in place were Common Sense Guide to Grammar and Usage, which was a Bedford St. Martin, and Exercise Central, which, you know, provided some links and some quizzes and some practice exercises that could be available in complement of that grammar text. We used the novel, The Education of Little Tree by Forrest Carter. Anybody is familiar with that, you know, it sounds like a wonderful, sweet little book, but then when you start really investigating the author and things, you can really get into some interesting discussions about racism and diversity and pretty much how people view other people. So beyond the novel, what we would do is we would supplement it with, you know, real things about the Trail of Tears with the Cherokee Indians, you know, nonfiction stuff that could enhance the discussion here so that they could look at the novel but in relationship to actually some of the nonfiction things. And so we had the selected topics, articles, and media for these. We use Moodle. Sometimes we would post links in Moodle for them to get an assignment or a discussion board, you know, to keep it fresh. And one of the supplemental articles used by Kathy Chambers was an Indian Father's Plea, and I think the author's name is Robert Lake. But it kind of talked about how one Indian father looked at the United States education system and questioned, you know, why they were classifying his son as a slow learner, all that, when he was really studying his culture and growing in his culture at the same time he was experiencing the regular United States education. So that's a very good article. If you haven't read it, I definitely encourage you to do that, because it made a very good supplement to that novel. But you can get a lot of interesting things. Students feel one way or another. One good thing that we've always had is I work with Julie Garner. She's our lead instructor. She's especially gifted with being able to pick resources and books for levels and people and interests. So it's almost like she can just pull it out and there it is. So if you have any questions or if you need some ideas, definitely contact her, because, you know, she can give you the ideas and ranges and Lexile stuff, and she just knows got a good instinct for that type of thing. We will be changing these materials for fall to tighten up to be along the lines of the actual DRE curriculum. Again, we were making this transition, so we tried to make it easier for the bookstore and ourselves with these existing systems. But we did learn a lot, and we know that we're going to have to do some work before fall. I'll change over. So reading, assessment, and mastery. We believe that reading is the foundation for thinking and writing and learning. It's a big deal in this area. Anywhere education will change a person, but it's very significant in our area for them to buy into the education and then feel that they can succeed. And when they walk across that stage and know that they succeeded, it is huge. If you went to our graduation, you would see families there, because a lot of people, you know, might not have completed high school, and then to have someone in your family finish college, that is a huge thing. So, and I'm sure it is everywhere, but you can just see the pride on that graduation day. And they opt to start with the reading as the foundation. We like to build our course readings around selected themes that appeal to our students. You know, we look at the population of our students each semester, or the folks that are enrolled, and we try to pick out things that, you know, that they will be interested, that gets them plugged in. Because if they buy into it, if they are interested in the topic, they want to know more, they want to go forward, and they want to spend time with it. We choose active reading assignments. We want a dialogue going on, either orally or written in discussions, a high interest. We want to know what they're thinking, and we want to teach them that their opinion is important. Sometimes developmental students will come to school believing that what they have to say is not important. But that is part of our job, is to teach them what you say is important, and what you learn you can apply. So during our many efforts for the DREs and the 3 levels, we found that the DRE courses work best when instructor and students meet face-to-face for 5 hours with additional assignments and readings on Moodle. Face-to-face instruction is very important for small classes and for a small school like ours. The instructor knows the student's name. I mean, you know, the first week you know who they are, they know who you are. And with that type of proximity, you really can help that person take that step to the larger world of reading. And that's what we want to do, is put them on the right path for their careers and everything. And to teach them not to fear reading and writing, but to use these as tools for personal growth, professional growth, and that whole arena there. Of course, these are integrated courses, and, you know, along with the reading comes the writing. Our instructors teach the various stages at the appropriate level, and we hold those students accountable. We want to see, you know, that they have this rough draft. They've got it down, and even if it's the worst things, misspellings and all that, we want to teach them that, yeah, we all start at a place. You start there, and then you take it forward. So we want to model that. We want to teach them to go forward with their ideas and not be afraid. If you make a mistake in that first draft, this is your time to learn and check it out and find out how to improve it. So once our students submit their best work in a form that is formatted properly, clean draft, name on it, you know the deal, we want to review their efforts and make suggestions on improvement. Because, again, we are a small school, we can truly sit one-on-one with that student and let them hear what they need to hear with regard to, you know, individual sentences, paragraphs, and skills. You know, our school, again, is small, so that we can totally even create individual lab times for students if they need to come in and get extra practice and that type of thing. When students kind of polish up their work and they're, you know, getting their information, getting their questions answered, they take all that information to create a final revised paper or the assignment. And we believe the back and forth process, the dialogue between instructor and student, is very important. It shows them that writing and editing are, you know, a process. You know, we can't just all put pen to paper and that's the last thing we do. If I did that, I would be awful with my spelling and all that. So we want to model the fact that, you know, writing isn't just something you just pull out and then turn in, but it is a process. It takes effort. It takes time to put your voice on paper. And you want to be an informed voice through the reading and integrated studies of that. Moving forward, here's just some little activities that we like to do. These can be used in any of the DREs or other classes, but a word of the day. Each class session opens with a word of the day. Usually the instructor can model that, the first one, so that they get to see how to do it. And the next one is provided by a student volunteer. And then it's kind of a rotation process. Everybody has a chance to bring something. It can be, in the words, you can have a vocabulary words from your readings that they choose, or a vocabulary list. It doesn't matter, but that way that everyone can have a chance to participate and kind of have the option of being a teacher for a few minutes, to actually stand up and convey knowledge to others. That's a great self-esteem builder. So we enjoy doing that. Another thing we can do with the DRE 96, we find that our students sometimes have a lot of course, the punctuation errors, but spelling is a biggie. You know, they probably try to spell it like it sounds, and it's sometimes hard to sit down with an adult and say, hey, your spelling isn't up to par, because it's a self-esteem thing. It's your voice on paper. And one of the things I like to do is to get them engaged with spelling a different way. And we actually had a deaf student in one of our earlier integrated classes a couple of semesters ago, before we moved to the DRE, who was able to sit down with her peers and show them the American Sign Language alphabet, finger spelling. And when she showed them that, and when we started to talk about the vocabulary and the readings and stuff, it became then sort of a game. Let's see who can spell this. Let's use this knowledge. So I have to credit her a little bit for giving this idea to us, because then it's a neat thing. It's not like you're coming down on the adult and making them feel shame for the spelling. You turn spelling into a positive activity. I really enjoy doing that with the students, because it gives you a chance to do something different. And it's kind of an interesting life skill. If someone can do some finger spelling, it could help them in their career if they ever encountered a deaf person. So there's a resource there. If you find that to be an interesting idea, go ahead and visit that life prints there. You can get the chart and everything. Really a fun activity to do. And I'll switch over to the next. All right, so we totally learned a lot in this first semester with the DRE. Again, even though we were integrated and have some wonderful foundations in place, we realized it was going to be a work in progress. Time was one of our big concerns, because our instructors, who had been pretty much teaching 16-week versions of the 075, 085, and 095, you're marching double time when you're doing it in an 8-week slot. So, then you have to decide what's important. You have to decide how many assignments, how many assignments are actually worth mastery. There's a whole lot of decision making that has to go on. The very first time you offer DRE, it's your learning. It's like, opportunity and work clothes. You literally have to go day by day and look at what's being done. But that's the perfect study, because you can take that knowledge and channel it into your next semester and your next semester. Just as Hilda was saying, it's really a process. And it's a teaching process, because students realized, they knew that it was a new program. They knew this was our first effort, and they were willing to help us. They were willing to get in there and make suggestions and let us know, oh, is this too fast? Is that too slow? They are a big ally in this. So the very first time that you choose to implement any of the DREs, recruit your students. Let them be a part of your growth, because you'll find a lot of information from the audience that this is targeted to. So again, we're going to have different things happening for us in fall. We had an excellent meeting with our English 111 and 114 instructors, and the college has adopted the pocket style manual. You get to see a picture there. We're going to use that as sort of our grammar and usage support for all of our Englishes, so that they learn about it in the DRE classes, and when they get to English 111, it's a resource that they're confident with, they're familiar with it, and it really makes a good transition for them. With the readings, we have decided not to be pinned down next time with any particular book. We do want to take a more of a nonfiction look at it. So we're going to be selecting high interest nonfiction articles, and maybe now and then a fiction article that we can bring some other topics in there. So our readings, we haven't totally pinned these down for fall, but again, we are so willing to share the information and our path to progress. So if anyone wants to contact us about DRE 96 or any of the classes, we can share our ideas that we did this semester or our ideas moving forward as we develop them. So we're hoping to develop a stronger and sleeker program for the fall. So this is who I am. KT is what friends, coworkers, and families call me. And again, I want to encourage you to, if you have questions about the DRE, the 96, especially if you are a medium or a small school and have a comparable enrollment to us, you can probably get some information that might help you as you design your labs and classes. Let me turn on to the next one. I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful team here. This is Julie Gardner is our lead instructor, and that is her information. She has taught English 102 or 101 and I think 102 in the past. The DRE 097 and 098. She's looking at doing DRE 099 in the future. Kathy Chambers has taught English 101, and she has worked with me with grade 96 and 97, working with 075. And Lisa Keeter from our Graham County campus, she's basically a powerhouse. She's done all of the things over there because that's an even smaller center than even the main campus. But Julie and Kathy and Lisa have been my rocks as we make this transition. They have looked at things from every angle. They have the heart for the student and the passion for developmental education. So I really feel like these ladies can answer your questions specifically if you want to know about specific assignments that were in each level, or if you just want to know type of plan, you know, syllabus, scheduling, and that type of thing. I encourage you to talk to them. I appreciate your time today, and I think my time is now about up, so I'm going to turn it over, I guess, to Kelly.
Hey, Katie. Let's see, I think I have control of the slide now. At Coastal side of North Carolina, we're sort of in between, I guess our is in between Tri-County and Pitt. We're at Jacksonville, North Carolina, right next to Camp Lejeune. So that's sort of the perspective that I'm giving you. We were not already integrated doing the 758595. We were actually only offering the English and reading 80s and 90s, and reading is another department altogether. So, you know, we come from a space where we have a lot of work to do. But I beta tested 098 during the first 8 weeks this semester. I did not do the lab hour, so it was not a true 098. I did it under the shell of English 90, but so I only had the seated portion. I was really pleased with the results, though. Those students followed me into an English 111 8-week course, and they're doing really great. I had 2 students who did not follow me into that English 111 course. It, however, was not because they could not do the work. It is because they just chose not to do the work. So that's promising. I am going to do a DRE 98, a true DRE 98 during summer. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is my plans for that class over the summer, and plans for the DRE 99, which I will be offering in the fall. And we're just sort of, you know, unwrapping this, you know, a little bit more at a time, because in the fall we're going to offer a 97-98 combination. I'm going to offer the 99. Another instructor is going to offer a 98, and then I'm going to do the 98-111 again. So we're just sort of, you know, we're adding a few sections every semester to sort of gradually get into the full implementation. Let's see. There we go. The scheduling for summer, our summer session is typically 10 weeks, and we are going to keep the 098 at an 8-week session as to not confuse anything. We're going to start on the first day of summer session and just let the course run for 8 weeks and be done. We are choosing to do our courses in a hybrid format, meaning that we're going to have the, you know, of course, the face-to-face 2.5 hours. The lab time we're going to offer online. We have heard definitely, and I've seen some of you talk about the VA on the questions. We have heard that, you know, VA does not pay for any online components for developmental classes, and I've worked with our VA person because we are right next to Camp Lejeune, so it's obviously a concern, a big concern for us. What we have decided to do, because our school does not have the resources to really offer all of our sections seated, we're going to offer one seated section whenever we do fully implement this for those VA students, because we figure that most of our VA students will probably place in the 098 realm anyway. We're going to offer a seated section, fully seated section for them to satisfy their VA requirements. And we're also going to offer DRE 99, which is seated. It is not, has nothing to do with lab hours or online. at all, so that should satisfy that. The class time that we're choosing to go with is a Monday through Thursday, for an hour and 15 minutes. And that's the way I taught it this semester, and I consulted with my students the other day, and I said, well, guys, what if we had 3 days a week and you had a longer class, or if you had 5 days a week? And they said, no, we really like the hour and 15 minutes, keep it Monday through Thursday. So I'm just going off of their feedback. I think we're going to keep it like this for a while. In terms of the lab time, that's going to go through Blackboard. And again, I told you, we have computer carts that we have to pull out sometimes for our English department. So we don't have the lab space to really do this on campus. So their lab hours will be sort of documented through Blackboard, and this will be an experiment. We've never done it before, so we're going to see how this works. In terms of the materials that I'm going to use for the summer, all of the textbook companies have really, really great products, but we really, as a department, there's a little sort of a committee that I'm working with, and we prioritized a reader as the big thing that we needed. We looked at a lot of textbooks, and we are not big fans of textbooky sort of things and workbooks and all of that kind of good stuff. But, developmental textbooks tend to have a certain look and feel, and we sort of wanted to go in a different direction. And really, because this whole model is based off of the reading and writing cycle, if you don't have good readings, the whole cycle is going to really fall apart. So we made that our priority, and we went with a reader by Cengage, and they have several of them, several versions, but they're by National Geographic. And it's just a really cool book full of National Geographic articles. The images are obviously just spectacular. So you can do a lot with just sort of, reading a photo and all of that. Stays with the nonfiction concept, their section according to theme, current relevant topics. So we're really excited to use that this summer. And like KT, we're going to start our developmental students off with the handbook straight away. And about a year ago, we adopted the Norton Little Seagull handbook as our, sort of our go-to for English 111, 112, 113, 114. We even passed it around throughout campus and said, look, your students are responsible for knowing this information and having access to this information. So we're going to start them off in developmental, and that will hopefully carry through. We're going to be using the Cengage Applia software. Again, this will be an experiment. We've never used a software before, but we're going to go with this, and because they do have an individual study path option, which we were really drawn to because we wanted the lab time to be spent, in a purposeful way, not just doing drills and not just sort of going through and, okay, I'm going to do this, and, I have to click these answers, and I'll get them all right. The individual study path offers a diagnostic, and then the student only has to do the components that they need. So that was more appealing for us. And in terms of, I guess, textbooky things or, how-tos and all that, our faculty was really proud and said, I've got some great handouts. What if we just get together and create this binder with all of these really wonderful handouts, and that can be our resource for, grammar and all that kind of good stuff. And so that's what we're going to do instead of going with a traditional textbook per se. And let's see, the lab time, this is our plan for the summer. We're going to set up a Blackboard course. Applia can run through it, so the student only has to sign on, one component, and there will be a link for Applia there. And let's see, we're also going to use Blackboard to post materials for the activities each week because I didn't want students to just go to Blackboard to do their Applia components and then, you know, not see Blackboard or not interact with it at all. We want them to get used to navigating the online environment, so we're going to have some things posted on Blackboard that they will have to access. And I want to try to do peer review for a few things through Blackboard. So they will get used to that whole thing. But overall, we're going to keep it simple and just get them used to it. Our goal is to create a shell for, like, for example, I'm starting on 098. Just create a shell for 098, and that way I can just, you know, hand it to adjunct or other faculty member, and the individual instructor won't have to create another one from scratch. And I'm sorry I'm going so fast. I know we're supposed to be done at 3:30 and we have questions, so I'm trying to run through this. Now, in terms of DRE 99, a lot of people ask, well, okay, the competencies look the exact same. What is the difference? First of all, the reasoning for the competencies being the exact same is that whenever we went to draw up the competencies for 99, we said, okay, this is a co-requisite with 111. What are the state competencies for 111? Well, there aren't any yet. I'm sure they will be, you know, some coming out soon, but we don't have that information yet. So what, you know, you have to do at your individual school is to take the 99 competencies and overlap them with your 111, your local objectives, and see if they make sense together. Sometimes they might make sense, sometimes they might not, because what I've definitely found is there are, you know, a lot of colleges doing, you know, tons of different things with 111, just as we were all doing with developmental. So we have to sort of take that into consideration. But fundamentally, you know, the differences are that, number one, 99, this is optional for colleges to offer. You know, if some colleges feel it is for them, some colleges do not. That is absolutely fine. The DRE 98 course, that's, you know, an 8-week standalone, or you see the possible co-requisite with a non-English course, but we don't have to go into that right now. 99 must be offered with 111, and it must be a co-requisite, and it is not to be offered after 98. So it's not the next course. We actually just spoke a bit before the webinar here, because we are making some final changes to the curriculum documents. And in terms of 98 and 99, the crosswalk is changing to include the cut scores for 99 and 98 will be the same. That is how the models across the country look. Research this in depth. This is really based off of the Community College of Baltimore County model, and you know, in their model, 99 and 98 they're on the same level, so the cut scores will be the same. The diagnostic test is being developed. The cut score will be the same for 98 and 99. Someone asked on the chat board earlier how 98 aligned with 111. I can say from my experience this semester that 98 aligns so well with 111, or with my 111, in fact, that I found myself the second 8 weeks repeating myself and starting to do the same lesson because, you know, it just, I don't know, that the principals were, a lot of the principals were the same. And so during those times, I thought, if this was a 99 class, I could have just gone over this once and, you know, it would be fine. But the problem is, in my second 8 weeks that I'm doing right now for 111, I have new 111 students in there that were not in my 98 class. So they still have to get that information, but my 98 students are sitting there going, okay, Ms. T, we've been over this. So I think really at those times, I'm like, oh man, a 99 would be great because I could just carry them through the whole semester. They would get the same information. They would, you know, satisfy the same competencies, and, you know, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. Let's see. In terms of the fall plans for DRE 99 for coastal, We are choosing to have the same instructor for both courses. The most successful models that I have seen do use the same instructor. Is it possible to use different instructors for 111 and 99? Sure. But you have to have a very, very, very strong teaching relationship if you are to do that, because those assignments need to be aligned and then they need to complement each other. But again, the most successful models show the same instructor. You do have to have buy-in from your 111 instructor, which is not a problem at my institution, but I know that it may be a problem at yours. So you do still have to have that buy-in. In terms of scheduling, we're going to do the Monday, Wednesday, Friday 111. We'll do Tuesday, Thursday, the DRE 99 students, all face-to-face. It's very important that this DRE 99 does not turn into a, an online lab, skill and drill, that sort of thing. That's not what it's meant to do. That's not how it's meant to be offered. That face-to-face interaction, support, and reinforcement, that is really how it's designed to function. At this time, we're not going to require an additional textbook to our course. And really, we use a Norton Back to the Lake for our 111. And if we need supplemental readings, there are plenty of readings there in the Back to the Lake. Again, we have handouts. We're not going to get the students to buy anything extra. The assignments for 111 are, just sort of keep them shorter, but keep in mind, you do still have to fulfill all of the competencies for 99. So, between those two courses, so you have to make sure that that you're fitting everything in. But it is a bit different because there is overlap. Otherwise, we would just say, oh, offer a DRE 98 with English 111, but that would be way, way too much. And the DRE, the students, I guess the ratios, you could call it. This is something that is, it's a logistical nightmare in terms of registering, and honestly, we haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do it yet. But the thing is that you can have your DRE 99 students and your English 111 students. Those two classrooms will look different. You might have students in your 111 class who are just 111 students. They don't need DRE 99, and that's okay. They could still be in the same classroom, and really that's ideal because the stronger students, will help the weaker students. So ideally, you're going to have about a 50-50 ratio of DRE 99 students to 111 students. Well, then you might say, okay, say I have 10 or 11 DRE 99 students. My administration won't let me run a section with that, with those numbers. Well, you might offer 2 sections of 111, and then the DRE 99 students from both of those sections could come together in one class on Tuesday and Thursday. And that way, you have you have a full class for your DRE 99, you have 2 full classes for English 111, your numbers are okay, you're still giving those students the support that they need. Again, it would be great if you had the same instructor, but depending upon your institutional needs, you could sort of you could figure that out in some way if you're willing to do a heck of a lot of communication with your fellow instructor. And I know we're supposed to be over in like 13 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking and go to questions.
Yes, that sounds good. And we'll go to the first set of questions here.
Okay.
And anyone feel free to respond. Thank you.
Can you explain what the English crosswalk is? Well, the crosswalk can be found in the curriculum document on Success NC, and that crosswalk, as I just mentioned, is being updated. And there are 2 separate crosswalks. One is sort of how the current tests offered, you know, the compass and the accuplacer is going to sort of feed into the new courses. And one is sort of a course-to-course crosswalk. For example, if you have completed reading in English 80, you know, you may feed into DRE 98. So there are sort of two different crosswalks, but it's sort of how the old system can play with the new system until we get the whole new system in place.
Thanks, Kelly. And if I can just add to that, the crosswalks that are in the curriculum document are recommendations. We know that the transition between the old courses and the new courses is just by nature a little bit messy and perhaps unique on campuses. So it reflects the good and best thinking of the members of the task force, those colleges. But if you need to tailor it to better fit your current instructional practices, so that when students transition, they transition in the best way, then you have the latitude to change that crosswalk.
We have at Tri-County a revised guided studies crosswalk that we're willing to share. It pretty much is along the lines of the accuplacer. So if anyone has accuplacer, I'd be glad to send that document.
Question about receiving the PowerPoints. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Success NC website, so you can view this at a later time. Your colleagues who were not able to join us today can view the webinar in its entirety. Let's see, deep on the content of the DRE. You know what? It really does seem like, you know, there's so much to be covered, and how can you get it done? But I don't know, from my experience the first 8 weeks, it was overwhelming at times, but the students just, they got it, and they got into the hang of things, and once they learned sort of, you know, how we were going to do this reading-writing cycle, they got into it, they came prepared, and it happened, and I don't know how to describe it other than it just unfolds. If you keep your assignments within that reading and writing cycle, it truly does work out. And yes, you are going to be on your time, but I mean, it's engaging, and it's not like you're trying to cram everything in. It's, I don't know, I went through 3, I guess, of the reading writing cycles in my 098 course, and it worked really well. I mean, would any else like to comment on their experience with everything being rushed?
Time was a concern at our school. Julie Garner is our lady that taught the DRE 98, and Lisa Keener. And having come from the 16-week integrated course and then trying to compress, and that was to the existing materials, proved to have some challenges at certain points. But if the instructor has the heart and keeps the students engaged, it can happen.
Yeah, I'll definitely say I started off the semester saying, oh, we're going to have 4 major assignments. And then quickly I said, okay, we're going to have 3 major assignments. But it ended up being, you know, okay. Everything got done. I just had to alter my plan a little bit. But still, they did, you know, the 3 assignments were purposeful. They were, you know, they got what they needed to get. Percentages retained to the end of the class and earning A to C grades, similar to those in traditional reading and writing courses. Does anyone want to speak to that? I mean, I feel like someone who has piloted more than I have needs to address this one.
Well, and what I would say, this is Cynthia, I'll just jump in saying, you know, it's pretty early just because the pilots themselves, you know, we're just finishing up the first semester, so, you know, we're not sort of tracking that yet, but maybe somebody else will jump in as well.
Maybe not.
Ours is still a work in progress. It's kind of, we're still in the middle of our second 8 weeks, the Fast Track 2, so it's kind of a bit early to tell, I think.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll have an answer for that question at a later time. I'm sorry, we can't answer it right now.
It is an excellent question, though, and it's definitely something that we all need to consider.
Well, and I guess maybe for you all that did offer it the first 8 weeks, did you lose more or fewer students compared to your traditional classes, you know, throughout the session?
The students that left, a lot of them for us wasn't necessarily because of the DRE curriculum. It was other personal particular issues. Some of them including that the young ones just sometimes do not want to attend class. Skipping class. So, but I think we can have a much better study of it when we have the full, look at the whole semester and then look at our data from the past.
But again, English 111 is different at different colleges, and so you know, that might change, you know, depending upon institution. KT, how have you found that your 98 objectives align with 111's?
I think we will have success there. Again, like I said, it's too soon to say specifically. However, we have this semester have built an excellent relationship with our English department for the future, like adopting that one style manual that will go for all DREs and English classes. So I believe the transitions to the future will be a lot stronger. Students will be familiar with how to work with that particular style manual and the expectations. So we'll probably go into it into a much stronger sequence than we were this first time out.
Developmental is in the English department, so I don't know. Maybe that's where the clear alignment comes in. Okay, we moved on to the next question. Did you look at the Pearson products? Yes, they do have, like I said, all of the the companies have sort of something of this nature. Yes, they do have everything divided. According to North Carolina's the SLOs and competencies. Cengage as well for APLIA, they are in the middle of sort of dividing their APLIA reading and writing into 098, 097, and 096 to sort of to pair those out.
We at Tri-County have been kind of concerned not to get something like a canned product that's basically like the old, I don't know how many people remember the PACE learning modules from way back when, where it was pretty much just a cut and dry, multiple choice thing, and it just really didn't appeal to the students. It just, So what we want to do is make sure that we keep our students engaged and active, because in our area, high interest and keeping them interested and plugged into the class makes a huge difference. And so we don't want to have some kind of a product that we rely so heavily on that it just becomes, a thing in a can, I guess.
I was really impressed with is Bedford Farms has a peer review program. I was a little concerned of the cost for development. Cost was a big concern for our committee when we chose textbooks, but it was a little bit expensive. But it's, talk about engaging. It's very purposeful in terms of having that online environment to do peer review, and it was totally customizable. So if anybody wants to check that out, that'll be good. Number 7, in terms of VA funding, I was only alerted to this actually a few days ago by one of my students who said that he had trouble with the the current course and with the DMA courses that he was taking. So I intend to get with my VA representative to discuss this, but what about everybody else? Have you addressed this at your institution?
No, I don't think that it has come up with us, but it's something that could come up in the future.
And I can just chime in from the state level. Yeah, there has been a lot of activity around VA and eligibility for remedial courses because they do treat remedial courses different than they do curriculum. We have been in contact with extensively with the executive director of the state approving authority, and he has assured us that the face-to-face delivery of both DME and any sort of remedial course is eligible. I think as most campuses know, you can't have online hours for VA students who are in a remedial course. And there is an issue going on. We know that a lot for DMAs, at least, a lot of folks are moving towards more of kind of a computer-based delivery, and that's something that the head of the state approving agency is advocating for approval of that delivery model in DC, and we're just waiting to hear back from them.
Well, and this is in regard to the second 8 weeks sort of situation. I guess, like my student took 12 hours this semester, but 3 of those hours started the second 8 weeks, so he didn't get his full VA funding. And the same with the DMAs, because all of those hours did not start on the first day of class. He was denied his full funding. So I think that's the that was the question on the table, and we'll just have to work with our we'll just have to work with our representatives. I mean, hopefully, the VA is I don't know. Hopefully they'll address this since it's sort of a national thing.
Yeah, it is, and I'll just say that, yeah, I mean, we are willing here at the system office, if we feel like they're just not getting with the program in terms of recognizing that things are changing and that the changes focused on acceleration and student success are good for all students, including VA students. I have heard Dr. Marcy say she's willing to, and Dr. Rawls, go to Washington and have conversations with the folks up there because it's a message that we feel strongly about.
And there were kind of maybe an offshoot of that is the concern about what to do with folks who need special accommodations or special needs students. This is an ongoing discussion at our campus. We don't have any particular solutions at the time, but it's definitely an area of concern as we move into the full, implementation of these courses.
I did have a special needs student in she's in my 111 class now, and really the only thing I had to do was like the final reading exam that was in class. I put it in the testing center for her, and she got extra time, but as far as the reading assignments and, like keeping, I don't know, she did everything. So,
well, that's good. It can be done.
Yeah. I mean, for her specific situation, yes. I know, everyone, there are different situations for everyone, but, other than that, there was nothing we had to do. Okay. Page 2. The way for us to access the various timelines and list of resources, again, the webinar will be posted on the Success NC website, so you can get everything there. Let's see. Did we already address the issue of the VA not paying for students enrolled in a blended or hybrid course?
Yeah, I think I think Cynthia was addressing part of that.
Yeah, and I think
and I don't think that we're in a position where the VA is going to change the fact that it doesn't support hybrid delivery and that all contact hours will have to be in a classroom regularly scheduled with an instructor. That's, I don't think, likely to change. I know there's the issue around sort of the computer-delivered software and sort of how that plays into approving courses for VA. And then this start date issue is something that we've heard less about, so it's something that we'll need to investigate a little bit further. But for now, if you have a VA student, that student is, there cannot be any online hours for that VA student, and that is something that's always been the case and will continue to be the case.
Right. And like I said, at my institution, we're right there next to Camp Lejeune, so I've talked to our VA guy, a lot, and I said, look, is it okay if we offer one section of, fully seated and for those students? Of course, we're offering the DRE 99, which you don't have that issue at all. So for those students, you need 98. So that's how we're going to address it. In terms of faculty load, I know at my institution, if there is a lot of instructors will teach DRE and curriculum courses, but for instructors who are just doing DRE, I know we're looking at 5 right now. I know some of the instructors said 3 sessions or 3 DRE courses per session. Is that too many? I mean, it's a lot, but I don't know. KT, do you want to speak to that?
Well, our loads kind of vary because our instructors have responsibilities in the learning lab as well as the DRE classes. So it depends on the need per semester a lot of times. And we do have instructors who do teach like English 101 or ACA 111 to round out their course loads.
Especially if it's the first time you've taught those 3 courses, yes, a tremendous amount. So plan. This has been a big question surrounding the DREs. So yes, I definitely have had sessions with my students on comma splices and subordinating conjunctions and all that kind of good stuff. But it was after I looked at their writing, I marked some of the places where they needed to address these things. I gave it back to them and I said, okay, look at your essay, look at your paper. Where do you have a run-on? And they had, whenever I was giving the lesson, I said, okay, I gave the lesson and I said, okay, now look at your paper. Now take what we just learned and fix your sentences. And then I went around as they were working and, help them out and, try to, allow them to grapple with their own writing. So I don't know if that's considered traditional or not, but that's sort of the way that it's meant to run in the DREs, is that the grammar is addressed within the student's own writing. It's not, just a skill and drill thing. Obviously with the software, they will sort of, have those things, but ultimately they need to be able to, within the context of their own writing.
And our students at TCC, you just about have to have some conversation on these topics just for their own survival in basically any level that we teach. I like to do in DRE 096, used to do it in 75, practice on sentence patterns and looking at what's in a sentence and really do talk about the parts of speech and how they work. But, it's being in a rural area, we've got some folks that they might not have received that information in their earlier education attempts. So it is a necessary part to give students enough practice exercises where they can feel confident.
More than one level per session, or all one level better? I'm not sure I fully understand that question. Per instructor. Can anyone help me out?
Is the question related to like an emporium model?
I don't know.
How about if whoever wrote that question, perhaps you can retype it in the chat box.
Yes, please.
In the meantime, why don't we go on, Kelly?
speak to this? Do you know more? I guess you have more updates on the development of the course.
Oh, English 075. We will not be offering that course in the fall. This is pretty much its last semester. When we initially started the DREs, we wanted to make sure that we supported that lower level there because we didn't really know what the enrollment would be like or the impact of placements and all that. So that was a measure to protect the students. We didn't have very many students in that level, but we did have some. And, you know, they deserve to have a path forward as well. In future, though, we're going to have to work closely with our ABS, Adult Basic Skills, the College Career Ready folks, to develop some type of course or some type of lab, whatever, to make sure that those folks have an opportunity to practice skills and hopefully increase their placement, increase their status, so that they can move on up into the sequence.
And I'll just add from the state level that our basic skills folks here at the system office have put out an RFP to our colleges' basic skills departments or divisions to identify one or more colleges that will create a new bridge course is actually a really good term for it, but a course that sort of looks and feels like a developmental course, but is actually supported through basic skills dollars, which means that it's free to students and doesn't use financial aid. And so that curriculum development is going to start soon and will be shared and available to all colleges and should be in place by or available to colleges for implementation no later than fall 2014. So English 075 will be archived along with the other old developmental English and reading courses effective fall of 2014.
About developmental faculty teaching the basic skills, you know,
Yeah, I think Cynthia spoke well to that particular course because it will have to go under the Adult Basic Skills and their support and dollars.
However, I will say that developmental ed faculty can teach those courses if that's the college's choice. There's no, you know, preclusion for that being done. That's a college decision.
Yeah, I think we have faculty, especially adjunct faculty, who teach our developmental courses and they work over in continuing education. So I guess that's just an institutional, you know, decision. And it looks like the person posted, let's see, that clarified that question, sort of, let's see, teaching 096, 097, and 098 in the same session or just 096. I think, you know, you can definitely teach, you know, all of the levels in the same semester because you're going to have students coming in at varying levels. So that's going to, you know, sort of meet all of the students where they are at that time. Of course, this will be, you know, a bit of, you know, I guess, you know, there will be a learning curve here as we're, you know, working with the old test and developing the new diagnostic, and you know, you might not know how many sections to throw in there, but you know,
Kelly,
if you have the faculty to support that, really.
Kelly, I think what he may be getting at is from the faculty perspective, is it easier to teach multiple sections of 096 versus teaching a cross-section of the new courses? I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation.
No, that's true. I mean, you know, it would be the same as, you know, how many preps do you want? I mean, that's the thing I would sort of consider with all that. You know, the same with curriculum courses. Do you want to teach 111 and 112 and 231 and that sort of thing. So I mean, it may be, I don't know, KT, you were already integrated. Did you have instructors who sort of, you know, really liked the 075s and sort of stuck with that?
Well,
85s or
Well, we've all, kind of shared that information, but DRE 98 and English, before then, English 095 was taught by Julie Gardner and Lisa Keener at that particular level, and they pretty much enjoy that course, and that they can really make it happen for the students. I know Julie has used like books like Tuesdays with Mari and everything to get people engaged. So both of these ladies are fully capable of teaching any of those levels. But yeah, I do think some people have a preference, working with a certain population of students. I've always enjoyed working with 075, 85 students, and so, working with DRE 096 and 097 students will feel very comfortable to me.
And I do think it's so good to have 8 weeks with one instructor and then be able to follow them into the second 8 weeks. And, I mean, it definitely, the continuity is there. And but, again, with really good communication, you could definitely have that same continuity with another instructor.
And I think we have that type of team at Tri-County. We all talk about common students or students that we've had in the past. I mean, we're right there. We can see each other every day. And we know the student's name, we know what they're about and what their successes and struggles are. And by having that strong team, that communication, it just so much benefits the students because there are more eyes looking at that issue and looking after their welfare academically.
Did we lose Kelly?
Yeah, no, I got you. I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know what this copyright issue is about. I'm not sure.
I think they were talking about, I think it was Hilda that was talking about that, kind of the thing that they pulled several sources together, sort of like, creating, I guess, like a book of articles or things specific for that one school. I think that's what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not unique to this curriculum. I think that those issues have to be navigated in the same ways they would for any other course, and maybe that's something that hasn't come up in our conversations yet. Maybe it's something that we'll need to address moving forward with professional development, but I don't think there's anything unique to the DRE curriculum regarding copyright issues related to course materials.
Okay.
And could you share the service? Yeah, I think that, KT, you may have already shared that in the chat box.
Yes, we have contact information for our call. We have that statewide DRE discussion group, so if anybody wants to be on that email list, just send me your name and your email and your school. And also I can share, like our registrar, financial aid, contacts so that your folks at your school would have a contact in their particular area. And sometimes that means the world of difference because they're looking at things from that one perspective, which may be different from the faculty.
In terms of the standard reading assessment, I did. And it was, all short. The standardized using there. Katie? Or Hilda? Or huh? Oh, audio problem for Katie. Standardized reading assessments. But like I said, Coastal is not using standardized reading assessments at this time. But maybe KT can address those later. Let's see. College of Albemarle, there's a high percentage of international students, but limited in terms of their expressive and receptive vocabulary. Spent additional instruction time on vocab development, especially in practice with identifying music flexibility instruction learning student needs. In terms of ESL, because we have had several conversations within the task force about ESL being it's a different animal. ESL is not developmental, and so we've tried to sort of address that fact and that they are sort of two separate animals. Some schools there are really wonderful ESL programs. And at some schools, like my institution, we don't have a college program, so to speak. It's all near sort of the introductory information in the continuing education department. So in terms of the extra time, the only way I really know how to speak to that is that even in my first 8 weeks class, I had just I did have one student with ESL concerns, and because he spent a lot of his childhood in Spain, and I just said, you know what, come see me in my office, because he needed that extra time, and we don't have very many of those students, and so I was able just to say, hey, stop by my office, we need to talk, we need to conference, I need to go over some things with you. But if you have a high percentage of international students, I'm not sure how you could manage, a lot of students with those issues.
See, we would have to examine that issue too, because although we have a few of those type of students locally, and they have been in the past in like 075 and 085, we just do not have a high percentage. It wouldn't be a separate program, for example. We'd have to work with that individual student and other systems within our college.
Yeah, and I think this is an issue that we should probably explore with colleges that do have higher concentrations of those students. I know Durham Tech, their representative on the task force has brought up some of the needs of these students. And so as we plan for our professional development in the fall, I would suggest that we have a session and colleges who are serving those students getting together and thinking about sort of DRE implementation with those students in mind. Because I do know there are colleges around the state, pockets of them, where this is an important population to address.
Sure.
And I think we've already talked about the VA issue, and I actually, just as we were fielding these questions, just sent an email to our financial aid director here in the system office to look into that issue a little bit more. So we will hopefully have some more information.
Did you all get your answer for number 21 there? That's when I started having some trouble.
21, standardized reading assessment. Yeah, what do you use, Kate?
Well, we do not have a standardized assessment. Each instructor kind of designs his or her own measure at the end of that DRE class. So we're not using anything like a standardized test at this point. Basically, they're looking at what has to be mastered. Of course, the students have to try for 80%. So we don't have one test that all the 98s use or all the 97s use, et cetera, like that. And I'd be interested to see are other schools doing that. Kelly, did you guys do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. I'm the only one who has taught it. I just had a reading exam, and they were allowed to have the readings in front of them, with any annotations that they made on them, and then I gave them a short answer essay test Like I said, the vocabulary was embedded within the questions, and they had to grapple with that.
We're kind of concerned about the standardized test. It's the same thing. We have that, like that one computer software that, you know, is all and does all. We don't like canned products at our school. We really like to try to keep it fresh for the students and also for the instructors teaching it. And sometimes, you know, with academic freedom, we want instructors to bring what they can to the table and their talents. So we always feel hesitant to have that type of be locked down into some kind of, you know, cookie cutter plan.
All right, that sounds good. As we wrap up, I'd like to remind everyone that today's presentation was recorded so you can watch it again on demand at successnc.org. And I'll invite you to check out successnc.org for other helpful webinars and videos. On behalf of North Carolina Community Colleges, thank you for your participation and have a great weekend.